Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are now on to episode 15, Kaddish. Kaddish? Uh,
Kaddish, yeah.
Something like that.
Kaddish.
Brian?
Kaddish.
Exactly. What's the legacy like for this episode, Brian?
I don't really feel like this is one that people talk about all that much. It's not an episode that has any long-standing kind of impact on the show as a whole. It is, an X-File of the week kind of episode where if you took it out of the season, you wouldn't notice in that respect. But sometimes they are the best. But whether this is
Sometimes.
remains to be seen. So yeah, where do you think this ranks in IMDb's ranking of 217 episodes?
Well, I will go 179.
Optimistic. It is actually 199.
Wow. So it's right up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. It's going off that score, it's not thought of particularly highly.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
that's surprising.
Yeah. Like I'll say up front, this isn't. It's not the best episode ever made. It's not in it. It shouldn't be in the upper echelons, but this far down the list, really,
It's not as bad as El Mundo Gira for you. Is that what you're saying?
Hey, that'll keep going back, won't it? Right. Okay. So we open up on a funeral of a Jewish man who was murdered in a store robbery, followed by a mudman being brought to life at the graveside. So yeah, it's
it's like one of those
intrigue.
Eventually, it's like one of those meandering starts where it's like it's going into the funeral, and you're like, okay, then the flashbacks to the robbery happen. It's a little bit more interesting. Something's interesting going on, and then we get the mud monster, and you're like, cool, Gollum, got it. But which is one of these things I think has changed since it came out, because probably when this came out, that was maybe a little known myth or legend, but nowadays there's been so many different movies and TV shows, it just, you're like, yeah, I know where it is.
Okay, right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it certainly beats Mulder standing there reading poetry. It certainly beats a black man turning into a white man in a airplane bathroom. So yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely been worse openings. Certainly less intriguing openings.
It's not that bad, Brian. It's not a bad opening. I just feel like it, because the legend and the myth of the Golem is as well known as it is. It kind of takes the mystery out of it, because I'm just assuming that it is exactly what it's pertaining to be, a mud monster out for vengeance.
Yeah. I think, just to feed into what you were saying, when I first saw this, I didn't really know about the Golem mythology. So yeah, but I mean, it is a Jewish myth, isn't it? So it is specifically a Jewish myth. So that's something I find interesting. That's quite interesting for me, actually, is that that there is a Jewish kind of mythology of some kind of beastie that can be brought to life. But yeah. So one of the men who killed Isaac, who is the man who was killed in the store robbery, was found dead he'd been watching the security tape of his crime. Fingerprints on the body belonged to Isaac. Yeah, like it's not enough you got to kill this guy, but you take the security footage so you can keep watching it for kicks.
Yeah.
Which happens.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But what I love about this is the way it leads into this almost persecution, because Jewish man's been murdered in his shop. The attackers have gotten away, and it's only when the attackers are killed that the FBI is called in, because now they have to investigate. You know.
Yeah. I would say I think this does a better job of kind of examining that conceit than the likes of, say, Teleco, which really heavy-handedly kind of that's what that episode was about. And because it was about that, they told you about that at every possible opportunity where it just became so heavy-handed. It was like, yes, we get it. Whereas here, it's just like it's just a fact of life that, hey, Jewish community, like the only reason you're here is because the people who attacked us got killed, and then we move on. And it's just like, yeah, I feel like it's a bit better explored there as a result. But
100%.
So Mulder and Scully go to Isaac's wife, Ariel. Is it Oriel or Ariel? I can't remember how you pronounce it. But her dad seems pent up. Yeah. Her dad seems a bit pent up, but she lets them inside, much to his chagrin, I feel. But they tell Oriel they would like to exhume Isaac's body already, like literally like a day after the funeral. Her dad goes off on one. Doesn't believe in American justice for the hate they always receive, such as a nice AIDS pamphlet which talks about the joys of how AIDS is spread primarily through Jews.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
Which
instantly
I'm puts you on this guy's side.
Yeah, I'm on side with the family and with Jacob and with Ariel, because I mean they've literally turned up a day or two later and we're like, just to rule out that nobody's messed with the body, we need to dig it back up again. No, hell no, of course not. And it's like normally Mulder and Scully are quite tactful, but even here they're very forceful. You know, like even sign it, don't sign it, we'll just get a court order and do it anyway. You know, it's unlike this pairing to do something like that, but they do.
Well, particularly Scully. I think in this instance, it's Scully who's a bit more heavy-handed, and that's what I find Scully is like this when the two of them kind of come into a situation, and you have a guy like John Lee Roche, who, you know, in Paper Hearts clearly was messing with Mulder, and that's when Scully goes into take no crap mode and gets in the face, whereas usually she's quite understanding, and in this instance it's Scully who's almost in their face saying, yeah, we can do this with or without your consent. But it's Mulder who's actually trying to show the benefit of the doubt. It's Mulder who's pointing to the pamphlet and saying, it's not exactly fair, is it? It's so it's a bit of a turnaround for the
strange as well, because Scully's the one that has the sort of religious beliefs all the way through the season. You know, we always see her struggling with her faith and things like that, and these are people who have their faith and their beliefs, and she's instantly just like, nope, we'll do it anyway.
Yeah. It is an odd moment. Yeah, just a little bit more tact in that instance would have been more in keeping with their characters previously, I think. But Mulder argues that their distrust and anger is probably justified, and that whoever published the pamphlet probably knows who killed Isaac and the boy. So they go to speak to the racist asshole who printed the pamphlet. He claims not to know the boys from the video after spewing out loads of xenophobic garbage. Derek, one of the boys, watches, then leaves. So
Yeah.
this
guy is such a douchebag. He's just such an idiot. Like, and it's a great performance because you can tell just by looking at him that he's one behind these pamphlets. He's just pompous, and then as the scene goes on, the crazy just comes out and becomes even more apparent, and you're just like, oh, he's going to get it at some point.
Yeah. The scary thing is I've talked to guys like this. Oh. I've talked to these guys where when you start the conversation, they say a few things that maybe sound reasonable or coming from a place of, and then like the more they talk, you suddenly realize that they're a few fruits short of a basket, and it's just like, it's just racism at its worst, where they'll do anything to try and justify their racist kind of outlook on life. But this guy's clearly a nut job. So Derek and Clinton, the two remaining boys from the robbery, they dig up Isaac's grave, and then Clinton is killed by someone when he goes to the car for some tools.
Like, I kind of like this scene because it's very Monster of the Week. The stalking, the hiding behind the gravestone, the creeping up and killing him. What I don't understand is why he doesn't kill the defensive guy in the grave.
While he's got the chance, he's taken out the one who's actually got a chance of fighting back. And then now that there's just some dude in a pit that like literally can't get out, you could just stand there throwing shovels at him and goodness knows what. But no, I'll take this guy out and then I'll go home for a brew, presumably.
Just baffling.
But I can only assume it's because he wants to instill fear into him. And but I don't know. Mulder and Scully are at the scene. Scully suggests retaliatory desecration, but Mulder says that fear of dead man walking. So Mulder suggests that they're afraid that this man they supposedly killed is actually still alive, which is why they've dug up the body. Of course, he's right. So he finds a book that bursts into flame. He pulls this little book out from under the body of Isaac, it bursts into flames. So
it's a really cool effect. It looks cool, but that kind of is what it is. It feels a little bit almost supernatural. You can't, like, you very rarely, you've always got something that can be explained in a reasonable manner. For Scully, this just is a book that's just burst into flames.
Yeah, I mean, I expected Scully to come out with some BS theory about how once Mulder exposed it to the air, something about carbon kind of made it ignite and it went up, because she usually has something up her sleeve like that. But so excuse me, it's been a long day. Derek goes to Pamphlet Man for his money. Pamphlet Man does not approve of the killing. So after all his big talk, all his spewing out of racist attitudes, it turns out he's just a man of words. He wants to take down the Jewish people with his words. He's not really interested in physical violence.
No, it's like I mean, he's spewing all this hate, and then he's a little bit standoffish when it comes to the killing, and then later on we see him with a huge Nazi flag just in his basement or whatever, and you're like, just
Yeah.
pick your point and stick to it. Don't all over the place here. Like, my goodness. I could
Fake
totally
Nazi.
see that guy
It's
killing.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going to be a Nazi, at least be a Nazi. Pussy. Okay. So Mulder and Scully go to an expert who identifies the book as the Book of Creation. He says it's never buried with the dead. It doesn't spontaneously combust. And Scully has a theory about that. Which, as I said, so Jacob Weiss's name is inscribed inside the book, and this is Ariel's father, basically. So Ariel's father's book is the one that ignited into flame that they found. So, could her dad be behind it?
So this guy, Brian, this expert, like, he kind of comes out of nowhere and seems to be sitting in a library, just, and I like him. Like, I did like him, and I just liked the setting, but it just seemed odd.
I'm assuming that's some kind of. I'm assuming it's some kind of like Jewish temple of where they where all the Jewish experts hang out and scribes and whatnot.
It's just it feels like they've walked into like a Jewish place of worship or whatever and went, that one. He's reading, let's get him.
Choose your own expert.
Yeah.
Okay, so they go to see Ariel. She tells them that she and Isaac did not get to finalize their marriage with a wedding. So they were actually. I don't know how a Jewish wedding works, whether you do half of it and then you have to do something else to finalize it. But but then she takes him into another room and she tells him a story of a ring that her father gave her. He'd kept it for 50 years until his daughter's marriage, never even sharing it to his own wife, because it's made in his home village that was wiped out by the Nazis. So basically his father or grandfather had made this ring back in the home village. It was like a really special. It looked weird because it's like a ring, and then it's got a big cathedral on it.
This is the thing. This thing looks unwieldy and ridiculous, but the whole sequence about him keeping it safe from the Nazis just took me back to the Watch episode of Pulp Fiction. And I'm looking at the size of that ring, and I'm thinking about the Watch story. And
the shape.
Yes. And I'm just thinking of this guy for 50 years keeping it somewhere, and it's so square
up my ass.
Nooks and crannies, and I'm like, you're never getting that clean. There's no way that you're going to sanitize that in any way. There's too many little pieces for it to be. And I know it's like a heartfelt moment, but that's what's going on in my mind while I'm watching this.
Oh man. I liked the story. That isn't what popped into my head at the time. To be honest, what popped into my head is like when she started telling the story about this ring, and then I was kind of sat there wondering why we were looking at this model of a house. Yes. And it's not until later on in the episode when she puts it on when I realized, that is the ring. It's a ring with the cathedral on. So yeah. I
wish they had cut to Jacob talking to her going, I had to keep this uncomfortable ring in my ass for 12 goddamn years.
As a girl. She's like a little girl kind of looking up at him. Yeah. And now I'm giving it to you. Yeah. That didn't cross my mind. I was caught up in the heartfelt story of one man's village being massacred by the Nazis. But there you go. So we go to synagogue prayer time, where Jacob is kind of, doing prayers. Mulder and Scully rock up, and Jacob kind of spots them and does a bit of a vanishing act. So they go upstairs to look for him, where they find Derek, the last of the robbers,
he's just hanging
hanging
around.
from one of the rafters. Yeah, just hanging about, doing nothing, chilling and a killing like Jack Frost.
Yep.
And then Mulder gets knocked over. This bit, I laughed my ass off, because Mulder gets knocked over and loses his gun. Scully gets knocked over and keeps hold of her gun, using it to stop the attacker from running, which is pretty much about right as far as these two go. I love it. Yeah. And I'm positive they did that on purpose.
Absolutely.
Positive.
Absolutely.
I'm sure the writers said this is a perfect opportunity to have Mulder losing his gun, getting taken down, and Scully getting taken down, but keeping hold of a gun, showing yet again that she is the most competent of the two.
Absolutely. But I will tell you what I laughed hardest at in this episode, and I'll just jump to it a little bit because it comes in the next scene, and it's the moment where Mulder says, there must have been someone else there because Jacob isn't big enough and strong enough to knock me down.
Yeah.
I almost wetted myself. I just was like,
I did.
I've literally seen Mulder being slapped unconscious early on, like in the series. Like,
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'd made a note of that quote as well. I thought it was funny as anything. It's like, seriously, Mulder? Like, yeah, I've seen kids take you down. So Ariel speaks to Scully, refuses to believe her father is guilty, and wants to speak to him. Mulder questions Jacob, who claims to have killed Derek in self-defense, but Mulder calls him a liar.
Yeah.
Scully, yeah, that's funny.
It's just this, yes, me, handcuff me, take me away. And Mulder's like, not that easy. It's not going to be that easy.
I think Mulder's pride was slightly hurt. So he's got to tell himself he was taken down by somebody bigger and younger. Scully tells Mulder that Jacob became a terrorist after the war. So she's done a bit of digging, found some information. He was responsible for a lot of bombings. Mulder doesn't believe that he's the killer. It was someone big enough and strong enough to knock me down. I'm just like, whatever, dude, whatever.
Yeah. Wish Scully had just turned around and said, right, we need an APB for a small girl with a lollipop.
Yeah. She could have at least leaned in and just gone, Mulder, that could have been anybody. Like, come on. Okay, so the Nazi printer, everybody's favorite Nazi printer, is then killed. So printing tomorrow's pamphlets, spreading the good news of Jewish AIDS when he's killed. Mulder goes back to the book expert and asks him to explain the golem myth that is contained within the book. Where he looks at this word emet, which is to do with like the golem thing, which when you split the word up, it means two words, which is truth and kill, which is this kind of idea of bringing the golem to life with the truth in order to get it to kill. Something along those lines anyway. Scully rings to tell Mulder about the death of the Nazi printer, Kurt. Which is, Kurt.
Who cares?
Who'd have thought his name would have been Kurt? So, the printer shop security footage shows that Isaac Gloria is the killer. Dun
Yeah,
dun dun. Even though, they dug up his corpse and found him there.
yeah.
So,
But
he's still running around killing them.
weren't you surprised when it showed you the CCTV and you could clearly see Isaac? There was no like hazy
Yeah,
lines
yeah.
or blurred
No,
images.
right across his face. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. No
I was just
Leonard Betts effect where it's like,
yeah, I
look at
was
that.
waiting on something. I was like, oh, cool, it's actually him. Just
Hmm.
interesting.
So Mulder explains his golem theory to Scully, says it
Mm.
was created not out of hate, but out of love. Mm. So they go to Ariel's hat. Oh, I wonder who it could be. They go to Ariel's house, but she's not there. She's at the synagogue in her wedding dress, of all things, which is where her father finds her, just
Mm.
hanging out in her wedding dress. She tells him about the phone call after he tells her that what she's created is an abomination. And then there's a noise, and he goes to check. So, yeah. Oh, hang on. I just pulled my headphone wire out. But yeah. So, as if you didn't know by now, it's pretty much spelled out. Yeah, that she is the one, of course, that brought the golem to life. Now, do you think she knew that it would go on a killing spree and kill these guys, or do you think she was just trying to get her husband back?
Yeah, I think she was trying to get her husband back. I don't think it was a like the father even says it like you brought him back out of an act of love, not hate. You know, she was. I think she just wanted.
Yeah. I mean, that was
I
that
think
was
that's.
Mulder, wasn't it, who said that? Yeah.
Um, was it? No, I think the father says that to her. I don't
Does
know.
he?
I don't know.
Right.
Either way, I
I
don't
thought
think.
Mulder said it to Scully.
Yeah, I don't think she doesn't seem to have any animosity to the people that really killed her future husband. Like she doesn't seem to be overly like revenge fueled. You know, I think she says at one point, "Oh, they're so young" or something when she sees an image of one of them, the person that's died.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. She doesn't
yeah,
like. I think she's
yeah.
trying to get her husband back.
Right. Yeah, not fully understanding the golem myth and the fact that
Yeah,
it will go on. That it'll take vengeance. Um, yeah, I mean, she never at any point like comes out with any kind of hateful speech
no,
towards them. You don't get the stereotypical. I wanted blood. They took
yeah,
everything from me. Those bastards. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's probably just she wanted her husband back and didn't realize the effects of doing it this way. So Mulder and Scully arrive. They find Jacob hanging and cut him down. Mulder goes to find Ariel. He's attacked by the golem after unloading his gun on it. Ariel stops it, says some words, scrubs out the last part of Emmett, and then Isaac fades away in a really cool special
yep.
effect. It's got to be said. Like, considering this is mid-90s, it looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
I saw something last week. What did I watch last week that had a similar kind of effect, but it didn't even look as good? And I was just like, wow, that looks good for the mid-90s. They really put some effort in there. So Isaac fades away. Scully comes, helps Mulder up, sees Ariel praying over a mudman, saying goodbye.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
Do you want me to jump into a wrap
straightforward.
up for this one, or yeah?
Yeah, go on.
This is one of those episodes where it does nothing spectacular and it does nothing to make it a bad episode. It's completely
Mm-hmm.
average across the board. You know, there's nothing wrong with the story. I just find it a little bit uninteresting. The performances are fine. The sequences together are pretty fun, like the grave sequence or the kind of in the shadows of the attic at the end is all fine. that's the best thing you can say. It's fine, and it's like a really forgettable episode. You know, if there was like a really terrible performance or story aspect, it may stick in my mind, but I've got a feeling this is going to be one of those episodes that I will completely forget within a week or two. And it's
Yeah.
not because it does anything bad, it's just not great. And
Mm.
because it's
Yeah.
right down the middle, I gave it 2.5 out of 5.
Oh wow. Okay, I thought you were at least going to go for a 3. But yeah, I mean, like, I will admit, I liked this one more than I was expecting to. I think last episode I said that I couldn't really remember a right lot about this, other than it was about some kind of Jewish mythology, and I couldn't quite remember exactly what. But I enjoyed the story. I liked some of the, like, the Nazi guy. He's really annoying. He's a terrible character, like as in a terrible person, but
Mm-hmm.
he gets a reaction out of it. I like the stuff with Mulder kind of like seeing things from the Jewish family's side, and yeah, I just it's a story that kind of brought attention to the myth of the golem for me personally. I know you've seen other stuff with it in. Um, it was good, like you say, not anything that's like wow beyond the sea level, or like that's it did so many things that were great. It wasn't one of them where it could have some bad stuff, but because it did these 3 things so top tier that it lifted itself out. It was just good, straight down the line. And I did actually say 3.5 for it. Because I think if it had put a few things in there that made it a bit more like really memorable, like maybe an actual monster, like like a proper golem monster, then that might have raised it a bit, so it became more memorable. Like, you think of an episode like The Host with the Flukeman, where that Flukeman is such a memorable monster. Like, that particular episode for me, I've always found to be quite dark, dank, not one I particularly want to go back to so much, but it's got such a memorable monster of the week in it that it kind of raises it, I think. And I think this one could have been the same if they'd have played up that golem aspect to the point where, yeah, let's actually create a monster here rather than just have it be the man again. Then I think that would have raised it to a 4. But yeah, it was all right. I give it a 3.5. I enjoyed it more than I was expecting to.
Good. Okay, so tell me a little bit about episode 16, Unrequited.
So this one's about a former army guy who has developed the ability to stay out of people's vision, peripheral vision or something. He's able to hide within the peripheries of people's vision,
Right.
And it makes him a good hit. It makes him a good hitman. So he's got a list of people that he's gonna knock off, and yeah, I think it's not one of my favorites, but again, I think it's going to be a similar feelings that we had to this one, in that it's not a bad episode, but it's not a particular standout either. So yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Okay. Thank you for listening to our podcast or watching on YouTube, if that's your medium of choice. We appreciate your patronage, and we will see you next week for number 16, Unrequited. Thanks for watching, listening.